Glasgow, end zone. Oh, my goodness! Needle, step back for the win! Ah!
The middle room for Beasley, leaps over a defender and scores!
Watson hits it the other way. Deep to left field. It is gone!
Now the catch, wrestled down on the 2. Coastal wins it.
The Teal is for real.
This is the Teal Syndicate Podcast, your home for the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers.
Coastal Carolina Fall Camp chugging right along here on August 26th. TJ O'Sullivan with you on the Teal Syndicate Podcast, your home for Chanticleer Athletic. Joined always by Joe Cash and longtime voice of the Chanticleers. Big week for the Chanticleers this week as it is mock game week, Joe. But Ryan Beard has been talking about this week all offseason. We're finally right around the corner.
Hard to believe that we're right here, TJ, like you just mentioned. I mean, only about 10 days out from kickoff and at West Virginia. I mean, that's going to be a great scene, but you just mentioned it. You kind of teed that up right there in his presser this week. Coach Beard talked about the mock game week, and we're going to get into that. But here, I mean, yeah, here we are. I mean, it's gotten here so fast, right? I mean, from the time he was named as our new head coach through the winter and through the spring and now into fall camp. And now here we are on the precipice of 2026 Coastal Carolina football. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, with every week that passes, it's like football's right here. Football's right here. We still got to wait a couple more days. We got to wait about 11 more days until we see the kickoff in Morgantown. But football's here. Football is in full swing. And it's a big week, not just because of the mock game week, which we will talk about a little bit, but also they just had their final scrimmage of fall camp. Ryan Beard in his press conference on Monday said that he loved what he saw. And the big ticket items from that press conference in regards to the scrimmage was he said that this offense was starting to find their rhythm. You know, like in an offense where, again, we're going to talk about quarterbacks, there is no established quarterback. It is really nice to see the playmakers start to find their groove, right? One of the sayings that Ryan Beard has is feed the studs. And according to Beard, the playmakers are starting to separate themselves.
Yeah, it kind of sounds that way, TJ. I mean, it sounded like the running game looked really good down the field the other day, made a lot of big plays in the running game. He really felt like, you know, the last scrimmage, you know, went well. And it's good to hear that energy, good to hear him talk about some of the things that he was talking about. I mean, you know, hopefully, knock on wood, hopefully, you know, the playmakers that we're going to need have gotten through this thing to this point healthy. Hopefully we're unscathed for the most part. I mean, you always have a couple of guys here and there getting a little bit dinged up, but hopefully at this point, you know, we're going to be okay headed up to West Virginia here, like you say, in about a week and a half. But I mean, the running game, some big plays. He felt like the balance and the rhythm is kind of there too. And again, the quarterback situation, he got asked about that. I kind of feel like, you know, they know who QB1 is. They're just not going to unveil that right this second.
Yeah, I'm with you, Joe.
You know,
they know who it is.
I feel like the team knows, they know, you know, and I go back to my original prediction, you know, several pods ago, you know, Deuce Bailey, to me, I think is going to be the guy because he is familiar with these coaches. He's been in that system. You know, he played some for them last year and he came over from Missouri State with these guys. I kind of feel like if he's healthy, he's going to be the guy. And so really maybe, and this is, of course, it's just me spitballing, but I kind of feel like, you know, from what I've been able to gather, he's going to be the guy. The battle is going to be who's number 2, who's QB2, right?
Yeah.
Who's that going to be? So anyway, I mean, he did not tip his hand when he got asked the question. Didn't really expect him to. Kind of felt like he might have. I do feel like the team knows. I feel like the team and the coaches certainly know who QB1 is going to be. But overall, he feels really good about where the offense, what they looked like the other day.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the other things that you need to consider in tipping your hand at quarterback, especially when you've got 4 guys that, by all accounts, can do the job, and by the tape, can do the job. You need to make West Virginia think about it a little bit longer. He mentioned in this press conference, they all bring their own things to the table. Trevor Jackson's more of a mobile guy. Osiris Lopez is that freshman phenom throwing outside the numbers. Deuce Bailey knows the system the best. Trey Guerra, very experienced gunslinger from Texas. So you've got 4 different guys. Why would you tip your hand to Rich Rodriguez and have him play and start game planning for him a week and a half out? I think we're going to get an announcement probably 3 or 4 days prior. But I would imagine that the team and the coaches, like you said, do know who it is.
The thing is, you don't have to name a quarterback right now.
Exactly.
You just don't. I mean, you don't have to publicly go out there and announce, okay, this guy's going to be our guy. You just don't have to.
And I would say it's in your best interest not to.
Unless I mean, and there are some teams that under the school of thought that, okay, this guy's our guy and we're going to name him and we want everybody to know this is our guy. And there are different schools of thought on that. If you're a Coastal Carolina, you don't have to do that. I mean, Coach Beck, Tim Beck never, I mean, he played that cat and mouse game, I mean, to the nth degree, right? I mean, he was trying to fool people and keep people in the dark. And, he didn't want to tip a hand on anything when it came to, okay, this guy's going to be, he wasn't going to do that. He wasn't going to do anything like that. But at this point in the game, you don't really have to. But I agree with you. I think as we get closer to the actual game week next week, I think a lot of that stuff will start to come into focus, right? Like the 2 deep will, hopefully be released. Clearly, you'll probably have a bunch of, this guy, I mean, you know how those depth charts look like, right? But as we get closer to kickoff, things start to come into focus a little bit more, and we'll have a lot better idea. Okay, these are our guys. These are the guys that we're going to see on Saturday and moving forward.
Yeah, and it is worth noting that, like last year, 2 completely different regimes, right? Tim Beck and Ryan Beard. But last year, right, you saw MJ Morris commit from Maryland, and everyone assumed that he would be the starting quarterback because he knows Tim Beck's system. He's familiarity with the coaching staff. Then you get into fall camp, and it's an open quarterback battle. And then you start to hear whispers about MJ Morris again, and it ends up being MJ Morris. It seems very similar right now because Deuce Bailey comes in with Ryan Beard. Now it's an open, it's completely open battle. You're starting to hear whispers about Deuce Bailey again. So maybe that's the way that they end up going. But the one thing that I will say, and again, they have not let any information out about this. This is me speculating. I think that even though a couple weeks ago I said Osiris Lopez, I'd love to see him get some extended time this year, I think the more I study the Missouri State offense from last season, the less I think that Osiris Lopez is the guy. Not because he isn't a talented quarterback, but because it's a very complex offense. And you've been hearing that a lot, but specifically, we'll just get into it a little bit. They run a lot of 11 personnel, as everyone else does, 1 running back, 1 tight end.
Mm-hmm.
They mix in a lot of 12 personnel. You bring in that second tight end. And a big piece of the offense in general, aside from all that personnel and all that changing around, sometimes they get into 22. But aside from that, you see last year, Jacob Clark, the quarterback for Missouri State, he has to get up to the line, usually a hard count, or send somebody in motion so that you can, advantage checks. You hearing a lot right now from Ryan.
Figure out what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just for them at home, like the advantage checks, if you don't know what they are, trying to get somebody to move so that you see, are they in man? Are they in zone? Is that
keys, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a linebacker? Is that a nickel? Right.
Yeah.
So, but the problem is last year, Jacob Clark took a very long time to get through those checks, and putting a freshman in that situation, I think that's not good for anybody. Not saying that Osiris Lopez can't do it. I think that a year in the system, learning behind somebody who can, like Deuce Bailey, like a Trey Guerra, who has all that experience in college football, I think that would do him wonders. And that's why I'm thinking, you start to hear Ryan Beard you hear Ryan Beard kind of like, talk about it, but like give him till next year,
A couple of things. Going back to last year, I am of the opinion, and a lot of people were of the same opinion, Emmett Brown was going to be the guy, kid from San Jose State, and he got hurt in fall camp, preseason practice, lost him for the year. I really believe that he was going to be the guy because I just don't think they felt like anybody else could step in and do what needed to be done. Now, there was a lot of dysfunction too, I think, between, among the offensive staff, with Coach Beck and Hollingshead and all those guys. I think there was a ton of dysfunction as to what those guys wanted to do. I don't think any of those guys were on the same page, but I think Emmett Brown was going to be the guy, quite frankly, because I don't think they felt like the other guys were, could do what was being asked of them. And of course, now obviously, you had another guy that they finally ran out there who kind of figured it out and was able to lead the team, even though he was not a good passer. But be that as it may. So anyway, that's what happened last year. And then in terms of a true freshman starting at the quarterback spot, Coastal Carolina has never had a true freshman start game one of his career. We had a redshirt freshman start. That's happened before. We've never had a guy start game one. So, I mean, and I don't think he would be the guy going to Morgantown anyway, right? So I think unless it came down to it, unless he was just clearly head and shoulders better than everybody else, and it was clear to the coaches and it's clear to the team, clear to anybody watching, you don't have to run him out there this year. You just don't. Now, you might want to get him some spot action. Now, you don't want to play him too much to burn up a red shirt at the end of the day. But unless it's like a situation where he is just absolutely better than everybody else and can move this football team better than everybody else, there's no doubt about it. You really, what do you gain by playing him this year? So, I mean, I still think there might be some packages for him. They might run him out there, get his feet wet in some of these situations. But yeah, I think among the other three, you're looking at your guy. And I think it's Deuce Bailey. I think he'll be the guy on September 5th. Remains to be seen, though. That's why I like doing these things. We can just sit here and speculate all day long.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, we can talk all day long, and then they announce, Robbie Washington's actually been working on his quarterbacking over the offseason. So Robbie Washington's going to start.
I love Robbie Washington. That kid's a leader, man. I'm glad he stuck around. I mean, he showed some leadership last year in a difficult situation. I mean, he's not afraid to sound off and lead, and I kind of like that guy a lot. Hey, we got to put Robbie Washington at quarterback. Let's do it. I'd rather throw it to him and have him back there, returning punts. But, I like Robbie Washington. Can't wait to watch him play.
Yeah, that was another thing, actually, in the special teams portion of the press conference with Nelson Fishback, the special teams coordinator. Robbie Washington is one of the names that you're going to hear about, punt returner, kick returner. Cross Johnson from Florida A&M is another guy that you'll hear about. And there were a couple other names, but starting to tip their hand about some of the special teamers as well.
Dominick Nicely was a guy they talked about.
Yeah, Dominick Nicely. And that actually brings up a great point, because that was the third big name that he mentioned. I think that you're going to hear Cross Johnson's name for the first punt return. Because you're not gonna want to have Nicely and Robbie Washington, basically the front runners for RB1, wide receiver 1, also picking up another responsibility. And Cross Johnson is very fast and has been making his rounds. And I've heard nothing but good things about Cross Johnson in this camp. I think you're looking at your at least your punt returner in Cross Johnson. But once again, we are just speculating at this point.
So Coach Fishback talked about he loved the explosive potential of these return guys, and maybe Coastal doesn't try to block as many punts because we're going to try to pop one. We get a guy who gets in good position, we might pop one. We might put two guys back there. He talked a lot about situational return game too. It was fascinating to listen to, and so many guys on this staff have been special teams coaches at some point in their careers, which I think is tremendously helpful, and that. That's such a part of the game that I think gets overlooked a lot, right? We talk offense, defense. you block a punt, you bring one back, you hit a kickoff return. I mean, your percentage of your win percentage probability goes from here to here. I mean, it just exponentially increases. You do
Yeah.
something in the special teams area.
It's the third phase of the game, and it's the least exciting from the outside looking in, but it is so important. And it's also, we talked about a couple weeks ago, it's the most personnel, right? You basically need 6 different formations with guys across the roster. It's head coach has the most pull on the roster. Special teams touches the second most people in the program, so it's a huge advantage for Ryan Beard that he's coming off of being a special teams coordinator into a couple of head coaching jobs. And he said he's taken pride in that. So very, very important, and very, really, I loved hearing from Nelson Fishback finally getting a chance to see how special teams was doing. But let's wrap up with the fact that this is mock game week, right? This is a very different looking mock game week, or a very different, just in general, the way that they're going to operate when you got to kick off on Saturday.
So typically, he talked about it in the press conference, right? So he, having the presser on Monday, that's an off day for the players, right? And I've seen that happen before here at Coastal. Coach Moglia did that. What they would do is they would actually come in on Sunday and they would have a little bit of a practice. They'd have some treatment. They'd actually practice a little bit, kind of work out all the kinks from Saturday. They'd practice a little bit. They would give them off Monday, and then they would get in their next game week prep starting on Tuesday. What Coach Beard's talking about is having, that Sunday for for the team meetings and the meal. And obviously kids will go in and get treatment as they need to that day. Monday's an off day. Tuesday's kind of the big ramp up physical day, right? Go out there, get the pads back on, get them popping a little bit, get guys back in that physical frame of mind. Wednesday, more of a situational kind of thing where the game plan is more installed, and you get into situations as to what you might see, what you're expecting to see on Saturday. Perfect Thursday, what he called perfect Thursday. I think it's interesting to hear these coaches talk about these kinds of things, right? The fast, efficient practice. Get the energy kind of ramped up. Get these guys moving around out there, but be quick about it. Be very efficient. Don't keep them out there very long. And then Friday's kind of your walkthrough, your traditional walkthrough kind of day, and then travel if it's a road game kind of thing too. So, that's kind of what they're doing this week. And then they're talking about having a mock game actually this coming Saturday when they go through all of that stuff. So it's a noon kick, right? It's a noon kick on September 5th. So what they'll likely do, and again, I'm sitting here speculating, but I kind of have watched this a little bit before traveling with teams. They like to have a pregame meal, typically, 3.5 to 4 hours before kick, typically. So I'll get these kids up and probably eat pregame meal around 8, and then get them to the stadium, go through everything they need to go through, all their, pregame meetings and whatnot, what they're going to do in the locker room, how they're going to come out of the tunnel, all of this kind of stuff. It's fascinating. So, with Coach Beck going kind of back to the game week kind of thing, they would do things a little bit differently. They would actually ramp down on Thursdays. They wouldn't do much. Their actual walkthrough and kind of bring the kids kind of down from an energy standpoint would take place on Thursdays. And then they would do what's called what they call a fast Friday. They'd actually get them out there and run them around on Friday a lot, which I always kind of thought was sort of interesting. And again, it's different schools of thought. Different coaches have different ways of doing things. One time I did talk to him about it, and he said there were studies out there. These guys break this stuff down, man. They try to figure all this stuff out, right? These coaches are trying to get a leg up. They were studies done that if you get these kids ramped up on Friday, they'll continue that into Saturday and whatnot. But, whether it worked or not, I don't know. But obviously, Coach Beard is kind of going back to what I've always kind of traditionally seen at Coastal, where you have your fast stuff on Thursday, you walk through, travel on Friday if you have to travel. If not, you go to the team hotel or wherever they keep them at home, and then then Saturday you're ready to go. So it's kind of interesting. But yeah, would love to kind of see how they go through this week, and they go through everything step by step, exactly how they're going to do it next week, exactly what's going to happen when they travel, when they fly up there and then they fly back after the game. So interesting.
Yeah, and it's And it's also goes back to, being intentional in every aspect of your life, right? Like another piece that he had brought up was Monday's the off day, right? You guys are students, you have obligations. What are you going to this is what it feels like, right? Classes are in session at Coastal Carolina. Can you get all of your stuff done on Sunday after meetings and team meal and on Monday during your off day so that you're good for the rest of the week? Right. That's one of those things that he talked about. And that was another very interesting piece of it. But yeah, it's the bulk of the activity is done Tuesday to Thursday. Friday, a little walkthrough. I would assume for home games, it's going to be a little more complex than that. It'll take a little longer since you have you don't have to get on a plane. But yeah, start to ramp down and then ramp back up on Saturday. So very interesting to hear him talk about that. And like you said, the different schools of thought and the different things that you hear from different programs and how they operate on game days. I imagine the home walkthroughs or maybe any of them, honestly, before we go, but I've seen, back in the day, Coastal would actually do the walkthrough when they got to the opponent's stadium. That changed when Coach Moglia came along. We always would do the walkthrough before getting on the plane or getting on the bus. We did everything at in-house before taking off. So I would imagine these guys probably, they'll probably do the same thing. They'll do a little walkthrough, probably do it in the indoor. So they make sure there aren't any eyes out there looking at them and that kind of stuff. There aren't any drones flying ahead, flying over all these things. There are people looking down from the press box. I mean, pays to have an indoor facility,
cloak and dagger kind of stuff.
But yeah, very interesting to hear him talk about that, and especially the actual game day itself. What section, what time frames are you allowed to play music in the locker room? What times do you have to have headphones on? Right, every single little thing, and it sounds so insignificant, but it's this is how it's done. This is how it's done around here. It's very significant.
Well, it's everything that he's talked about since he's been hired, since he came to Conway, right? It's everything that he's been talking about. You do everything, you practice the way you want to play. You do everything, you rehearse the way you live. The way you approach everything has got to be structured. It's got to be detail oriented. Everything that you do. I mean, he said that from day one. So I mean, yeah, that's what they're doing.
Yeah, and detail-oriented, especially in special teams this time around, because there are some new rules this year in regards to special teams. We're going to talk to Dominick Crosetto from Sunbelt Syndicate, get him back on the show next. But first, we're going to go throw it to Kyle Nashheim as he takes us around Teal Nation for the 2-minute shot.
From the pitch to the court, we've got goals, saves, new faces, and a whole lot of teal and bronze coming your way. This is the 2-minute shot, your fast breakthrough Coastal Carolina athletics. I'm Kyle Nashheim, and we're kicking things off with a soccer doubleheader of storylines. Coastal Carolina women's soccer came out flying to open the 2026 season, shutting down Charleston Southern 3-0 at the CCU Soccer Complex. Freshman Camden Pierce broke the deadlock in the 41st minute, scoring her first collegiate goal in her very first match.
Coastal still have it here now. Takes a shot from long range and takes a carom off of a Buccaneer and score.
Then came the second half. Transfer Sammy Schultz doubled the lead before Lauren Behringer put the game away in the 81st minute. Then came the road trip to Gainesville against Florida. The Shots showed some fight. The Gators jumped out to a 2-0 lead, but Coastal answered with first collegiate goals from Ava Rodriguez and Olivia Lawrence to tie it at 2. Florida eventually found the winner in the 75th minute, taking the match 3-2. So Coastal starts the season 1-1 and gets a chance to bounce back at home against Central Michigan. Now let's switch over to the men because the Shots just opened their season against the number 2 team in the country. They didn't blink, battling NC State to a scoreless draw in Raleigh. The Wolfpack controlled the shot count 19-4, but the Shots defense stood tall. Goalkeeper Will Devine came up with a pair of big first half saves, keeping the number 2 team in the nation off the scoreboard.
DiFrancesco weaving his way.
That's a touch from Will Devine. That's an absolutely outstanding save.
New coach Adam Perrin gets a result in his first official match at the helm, and after going 2-0-1 during the exhibition schedule, including a 1-0 win over Wake Forest, Coastal has already shown it can hang with some serious competition. Next up, Longwood on August 24th. And finally, volleyball is almost ready for prime time. The Shots are wrapping up exhibition play before opening the regular season August 28th against Duke at the HTC Center. Coastal was picked 3rd in the Sunbelt East, and senior Anna Rita is the lone Shot named to the preseason all-conference team. team. And just like that, 2 minutes are up. So whether you're watching from the stands, listening from the road, or repping teal and bronze from wherever you are, we've got you covered. I'm Kyle Nashon for Teal Syndicate, and this has been the 2 Minute Sean.
Special thanks to Kyle Nashheim for breaking down what's going on around Teal Nation. He's going to be giving us our strange stat later in the show, as he always does, but now he's going to be giving us the other sports that are happening on Teal Nation. Right now, we're focusing a lot on football, but women's soccer, men's soccer getting started. Volleyball is going to be getting started here pretty soon. So Kyle will be giving you all you need to know here on out, and we'll, of course, talk about those teams as the seasons progress as well. One thing that we do need to mention about that men's soccer matchup against NC State, that was the number 2 team in the land, and now they are in the 20s. So Coastal drawing that draw was a big time decision in the grand scheme of collegiate men's soccer. Joining the show now, though, to talk those special team rules we alluded to at the end of the first segment, Sunbelt Syndicate's Dominick Crosetto. Dom, I mean, I think the first thing that we can say with all certainty before we really dive into these rule changes on the special team side and in college football in general for 2026 is it's a mouthful for some of them. There's a lot we need to really consider here.
Yeah, there really is. I mean, you usually bring me on. We talk about schedules. We talk about games.
We're
now,
asking a lot
you're gonna
of
have me. You're going to have me jump on here and talk about punting. Listen, man, we're going to talk not about a game, but about punting. Not
All
a
right,
game.
AI.
Not
All right,
a
Alan.
game. Punting. All right. The shout out to Allen Iverson and the great tirade he went off on when he was comparing games to practices with the reporter after a little bit of a frustration, right? I don't think, we've had a little conversation beforehand, TJ. It's not quite as big of a deal, but it's gonna change some things specifically on the punt. And I know we're gonna talk about other rules. Do you want me to get into the punting aspect first then?
Well, let's start with some of the easier ones to digest.
Okay.
We'll start with offensive pass interference. There's going to be a reduction in the penalty there. It's typically a 15-yard march in the other direction. It's going to be reduced to 10 yards. Offensive PI, typically a drive killer. We're going to take 5 yards off of that penalty, which I think is good for the offense, Dom.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those things, though, right? Like, just like a lot of other penalties in football, specifically on the line play, you could call a penalty almost every time, right? Did the defense get there too early? Did he hold on a little too late? Did the offense push off? Was it just a little bit of contact? But I do like the fact that 15 yards either way seems like a lot, just depending on the severity of it. And there is no measure for severity of the foul. Like some other sports kind of have that. Football really doesn't have like, well, he kind of got him, or, well, he took him all the way to the ground, right? It doesn't matter. It's just PI or it's not. So I do like the fact that it's not quite, like you said, a total drive killer when on first down you get, a 15-yard penalty because the guy barely stiff-armed him. And then on the next play, the defense gets him in the exact same way and they don't call it. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah. One thing to consider, though, a defensive PI, at least in college, in the NFL, it's a spot foul.
True. In
college, it's a 15-yard penalty if it's that deep down the field. So I don't know. It's I think it's making the defensive PI a little more severe by taking 5 away. But at the same time, I think it's more difficult to progress the ball down the field for a lot of offenses against great defenses than it is the other way around. So, I don't have any qualms with that one. You're just taking 5 yards off of the punishment. The other one that's the other couple that are easier to digest here, taunting. They're going to take a special interest in taunting, specifically during touchdown celebrations. So keep an eye on that. I don't really think there's anything to discuss about that one. And then the targeting rule. So targeting is typically you get called for targeting. It's immediately a suspension for the first half of the next game. This new rule in 2026, which this is on a 1 year kind of like a demo basis, it's only guaranteed for 2026. They'll see how it went before making any decisions for 2027. This year, your first of the season, your first targeting offense of the season, no first half suspension. You're just out for the game, and then you can play at opening kickoff next game. Your second offense goes to that first half suspension. You think this is good for, targeting is such a controversial issue in general, Dom, but like you think having that bit of grace for a defender is going to lead to some more physical, at least to start the season, some physical play?
Yeah, I mean, I think this one's a no-brainer. I don't even know why they're on a trial basis. I think the other one was too harsh, right? I once again, we can talk about severity and the differences in sports. Soccer has an accumulation of yellow cards. Like maybe you don't get a red, but you get a yellow card in 5 games, or, different leagues have different rules. But once you get so many, then the punishment gets more severe. I think the same thing here. They were punishing a play in 1 game, and they might have a bye week in between. It doesn't matter. It's still held true to that 2 weeks later, totally different opponent. Now you're going to punish this kid for something that had nothing to do with the 2 teams that are going to be on the field. I realize you also want to clean up the dirty play, and that just becomes a part of it. But I think too often in sports in general, the severity of one play for a split second, especially like you said, TJ, with the targeting being so quick and so controversial a lot of times, the severity of keeping a kid out for a prolonged period of time just doesn't fit all the time. But there's ones where you see it and it was clear as day, and maybe they should be suspended for a whole game afterward, right? Again, the severity kind of matters. If they're not going to have that aspect to it, I think this probably is the better way to deal with it than what they had been.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at over the course of seasons, right? Like you typically don't pick up more than 1 targeting call over the course of a year anyway, if you're an average defensive player, starting all 12 games. So I think it allows for, I'm all for cleaning up play and making it safer for especially defenseless players. Right. But it also was like, all of a sudden, you make what seems like a clear hit, everybody pops up, and then all of a sudden you're gone targeting. It was very, very instantaneous. Like, you're in the game and boom, you're out for the next 6 quarters. I think that this it allows the defense some cushion to where it's like, you're gone for this game because it's a dirty play and we take this seriously, but like you're in next game, please clean it up. Like that's, I feel like what this is all about. And I like that. I like that change a lot.
Real quick, one last thing.
Yeah.
You talk about like a rivalry game, and then the following week you have like an FCS opponent. What do those 2 games have to do with each other? Of course, the play is going to be elevated. It gets a little chippy, a cheap shot. Why we punish them for the other game too, right? That's kind of what I guess.
And adversely, right? You're playing an FCS opponent, and then the next week you have a rivalry game or an in-conference game that you need your guys for. So that's that's very tough to lose potentially a star for half of the game for something you did last game. Exactly. Not a huge fan of that, but that's the last digestible rule that we have here. Here's the next one. Something that Nelson Fishback was talking about in the press conference this week. It is the special teams number exceptions. I'm gonna kind of just read some of this verbiage here. This is specifically for the numbers of the players on the line during a punt attempt. Okay. Typically linemen have to be between 50 and 79. Okay. Jersey numbers. They have to be between the numbers 50 and 79. If you have a player who is outside of that range on the line, you're trying to disguise something for a fake, or you're can't do that anymore. right? If you have somebody on the line that is a number exception, that's outside of that 50 to 79 range, your snapper, so your center, and the two guys to his direct left and direct right, your typical guards on a line, they are ineligible receivers, right? So basically what this does is it allows for less confusion for the defenses and for referees as to who's eligible and who's not. Like if you are those three guys on the line, you cannot go out for passes. Though you basically as a defense have to account for the other 7, right? Because the punter's not going out for a pass. He's the one passing the ball. Then you have 3 linemen who are ineligible. You got to account for 7 guys. So, Dom, I will, after saying all of that and explaining that the best I can.
Yeah, that's great.
What do we feel about that?
No, I had that kind of stuff ready too. So that's great. I mean, the biggest thing is NCAA committee, if you want to call them that on this one, significant confusion on both the defensive and official side of things that just made it difficult for everybody. That's their claim. Okay. There are plenty of people. Iowa's Kirk Ferentz is very famous with the great special teams saying there was nothing wrong. Why are we changing it? I believe 61-1 was coaches in a rough poll that were against this rule change. It does make sense. It makes sense for the viewer, although the average viewer was never going to probably know much about this. Like you said, this takes away the element of surprise. Some coaches will argue that it takes the element of creativity away, but it also, in some regards, opens that up. Right now, it's clearly defined who's on the line and how that has to be set. And also your backs that are in the backfield have to be clearly set and defined as well. But otherwise, you can still have some movement. You just can't have any movement on the line, right? So these pre-snap movements, once you get those guys clearly defined there, they talked about having zip-up jerseys to throw on these guys if there needs to be a number change. That also would include a placard or a card filled out with the information handed to the referee before the game. I mean, it seems like some of these things are excessive, over the line, just overthought out. And I can see why the guys who are special teams coordinators, coaches, guys have been doing this for years, just hate this change, right? Most people in general in life hate change. But we could see a lot of potential block punts or block punts. The downside to this is we're also possibly going to see a lot of punters get injured because now everything's clearly defined. Now you can send more guys or be prepared to send more guys or overload a side because of what the offense has to do structurally. So it's going to be a little interesting. A lot of thought process is usually, how do we score more points? How do we make this game more watchable? How do we keep people more interested for a longer period of time? This could, in some regards, help that. It could also help open up the return game because, again, you've got all these people clearly defined. Now the releases happen better or more timely, or they're more clear for the defense or offense to see what needs to be done. So, I mean, at first I read it and I said, this is stupid. It's over the line. It's just too much. But then I'm thinking, all right, once people get away from that, right? After the first week or two of this stuff happens, we could see a little bit more excitement in the punting game.
Yeah. I mean, for as many people as are saying that this can take away from the creativity, which I think it does, right? There are some plays that you're not able to run anymore. Like you now have to take that side of your playbook and rework it. So it does take away some of the creativity, but it also helps with some of the confusion, right? Because there was a great play that Notre Dame ran last year against Arkansas. That play, that fake punt, you can go figure it out. It was, I think at that point, it was like a 42-13 game in the third quarter. They ran a fake punt. That play would be illegal because it was the first guy touching the ball, I think, was the Malachi Fields lined up directly to the left of the snapper. So that is, I think that it takes away some of the creativity, but at the same time, there's just so much that can happen. in a fake play like that, and just adding some regulations to it. For me, I'm sure special teams coordinators hate it. For me, I don't really see the impact that it's going to have, other than you have 3 less people to throw to. So
I think the biggest thing that you will notice is whether you sneak a tight end out there, right? Like, oh, the tight end's going to block. No, he's going to go out for a pass. Now it's a little bit more obvious. This would be a fake in most situations. Now it can't be, right?
Yeah, I mean,
have that tight end out there.
In all honesty, like if you want to run a fake play, now all you have to do is you can't line up at center or guard if you want to go out for a pass. Like, the next guy over can be your tight end and go out for a pass. Like, there are going to the special teams coordinators have worked on it all off season. It's going to be fine. They are going to figure it out. And then we're going to be, we're kind of just blowing hot air at this point. They're going to figure it out. We're not getting rid of fake punts. No. So that is the special teams clarification, as best explained as we possibly can, because that'll be a big one. I'm sure it'll come up at least once this upcoming season across the country. And then the final one, and this one is the one that's pretty interesting. It's an NFL rule called the fair catch kick. If there is a situation late in the game, where you have a fair catch awarded to the receiving team around midfield, and it's like, late in the clock, there's a couple seconds left or something like that, you can have an uncontested try at 3 points. I mean, that is, and potentially, if the fair catch happens, I don't know why this would ever be the case. I would just, as a quarterback, if you're up, run the other direction until the clock expires. But if you kick the ball and the clock expires and you fair catch it around midfield, it's an untimed down and you get a chance at 3. So what do we feel about this one? Trying to make it more like the NFL game.
Yeah, and I think you don't even see this in the NFL very often, right?
Again, like you really don't.
Yeah, it has to be extremely situational for this to really work out for you. We have seen, I mean, off the top of my head, I think I can remember literally 2 or 3 times in my history of watching NFL football that I've ever seen the kick done. The interesting part that people are thinking about here, like it can't be a punt or a kick. I don't know who's going to try a kick on the other side of the field, but if you somehow fair catch missed field goal, I guess you could try an 80-yard field goal from the other side. Again, those are the extreme situations where you're not going to see that, but technically, yeah, you could have that happen. I think when these things do happen, it's going to be a great situation, and everybody on social media is going to be telling everybody, check out the kick that they're about to try. It's 70 yards to win the game, no time on the clock. They can't possibly block it. It's either going to be shanked or made or, maybe just missed, but it's going to be a probably pretty exciting finish. So I hope we get at least one really good situation.
I'd love to see one.
Yeah, I would love to see one as well, especially if it's like a kid who, missed 2 earlier but almost had them. And now this one's like way longer, but why not? It's all we got left. We don't need a touchdown. We only need to win by 1. This gives us 3. Let's trot him out there. Or hey, the kicker hasn't made any, and now they're throwing the punter out there, right? Because sometimes they get these punters who have longer legs and can hit these longer field goals, even though they don't have the upward trajectory. They have the distance. So maybe we'll see some stuff where like the kicker gets replaced by the punter, and the punter's got to come in and win the game on a field goal. Like that could be a kind of cool situation too. Yeah. So I think it's going to be fun, especially for the people that, grew up with soccer like myself. So long kicks, let's see it, man.
Yeah. Also, we'll never see this, by the way. It also applies to drop kicks. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah. So you can drop kick it from wherever it is, or you can have someone holding it and place kick it. The only other situation that this applies for is technically, right? Technically, I don't know why you would ever do this late in the game, but you can call a fair catch on a 1 bounce high bouncer onside kick. You can call a fair catch on that. So that is the only other option. Like I said, if you're up 3 or you're tied, why are you onside kicking?
Right. Exactly.
But that is the only other scenario that I can potentially see, this occur. If it is like an onside kick and they beat it into the ground and it pops up, technically that first line, Ken Fair Catch, has to be awarded the ball, or at least the halo, to be able to receive the ball. And then if the clock is winding down, you can do a fair catch kick from right there. Again, I'm going to be so honest with you guys. We're not going to see this, but it is something that has made its rounds over the offseason. And because Nelson Fishback was talking about it in the press conference this week, figured we'd give you a little update on what the special teams rule changes were.
I think the one thing, like you said, the reason you won't see this is in a situation where the other team could reasonably fair catch it and then try and kick a field goal. Kick it away from the return. Why would you kick it anywhere near him? Take the kick out of bounds, and they're just not going to kick it to him. I mean, a mistake could happen and it gets to him. I get it, but they're not going to purposely try and allow this play to happen. So,
yeah. So those are the rule changes. You will never hear about it ever. But those are the rule changes. We're going to send it over to Kyle for the one strange stat. But when we come back, we've got a mailbag with Joe Cashin rejoining the show. So don't go anywhere. This is Teal Syndicate Podcast.
There was a time when Coastal Carolina football looked less like a mid-major program and more like somebody had accidentally left the cheat codes on. In 2021, Coastal scored nearly 41 points per game, averaged nearly 230 rushing yards, converted almost 54% of third downs, and finished with a plus 19.3 scoring margin. Then somebody found a controller and turned the difficulty setting to expert.
I'm trying. Peter's cheating. You're cheating, Peter.
I'm not cheating. I'm following the rules. I'm just really good.
By 2025, Coastal was scoring just 22.2 points per game. Third down conversion fell to about 33%. Total offense dropped to nearly 4,200 yards in 2025, a decline of more than a third from 2021. Translation, 3rd and 7 stopped being an opportunity and started looking like a scheduled punt.
Seba Fundi to punt again. Ymir Knight deep for the Dukes.
And here's where the drive data gets really interesting. From 2019 to 2025, there were 605 opponent drives that followed a Coastal drive that did not end in a touchdown. Opponents scored a touchdown on 173 of those drives, about 29%, but 310 times Coastal got the ball back without allowing a score. That's about 51% of those situations where Coastal's defense got the ball back and gave the offense another chance. The bigger issue was what happened when Coastal had the ball and what happened when it didn't finish those drives with points. And while the offense was losing horsepower, the defense wasn't exactly slamming the door.
Marcus Williams here, he has a shot. I'm not sure really what he's thinking, Joe. He comes in, he's got him dialed in, and all he's got to do is make a play.
Opponents rushed for nearly 2,700 yards in 2025, a 56% increase from 2022. Coastal sacks fell to 19 in 2025, and interceptions increased to 13 last season. The numbers tell a bigger story. Coastal went from controlling games to struggling to sustain drives to putting its defense in increasingly difficult situations. The cheat codes weren't just turned off. Apparently, somebody changed the batteries in the controller. For Teal Syndicate, I'm Kyle Nashheim, and this has been One Strange Stat.
Thanks, Kyle. Second segment for Kyle. He's been keeping busy in the background, really breaking up our show now, giving us a way to separate these segments of us talking. But back here on the Teal Syndicate Podcast, and one of the things that Kyle talked about, well, the entirety of what Kyle talked about was offensive efficiency. One of the things that goes into that is running the football. And what goes into running the football? Offensive line. And that's a big question mark, Joe, heading into this season. Is you got a brand new offensive line. What are they going to do with it?
Great question. hopefully, you find 8 guys, and these, that's a number that offensive line coaches that I've heard through the years talk about. They want 8. They feel like they have 8 guys that can play, and some of them at different positions. They feel pretty good about that. So hopefully, right, we've gotten through fall camp and we've gotten through this point of preparation for West Virginia, fairly intact up there. But again, this is an all-new starting offensive line, which in all the years, this is year 24 of Coastal Carolina football. I've never seen anything quite like that. Now, Daniel Jones is a kid who started 3 games for us last year. He started the last 3 when Nick Del Grande got dinged up in practice because we were going full bore and beating the crap out of each other. And so Nick Del Grande lost. He lost his last 3 games as a Chanticleer before he transferred to Duke. But Daniel Jones has at least some starting experience, right? Those last 3 games, and he played every game for us last year. Trey Franklin played in 9 games. He was an all-MEAC kid at South Carolina State. So, I mean, you got 2 guys right there. And then all these the guys that kind of came in here, Apisa Pumele, and he was a center at Central Michigan. I kind of feel like if he's, he probably will be the center here. I think he's going to snap the ball as long as he hadn't gotten dinged up or beaten out or anything like that. He brings a lot of experience in here. Christian Loiza comes from Missouri State. He played a lot of games out there for those guys. He'll be in there. Gavin McLaughlin, Daughtry Richardson, those 2 guys, Mason Barton, Kane McDonald might be your last 2 in that eight-man rotation. That's kind of who I'm thinking right now. And of course, athletics did a really great job of kind of breaking some of these guys down and giving some information as to, where they played and how much they played. But again, I mean, this is a football team, TJ, that rushed for just 158 on the ground last year. That was 70th in NCAA rankings. That's, that's literally middle of the road stuff right there. 158. I think for us to be successful this year, that number needs to be 180, 190, I think, in this style of offense. I think we need to be able to run the ball for at least that much on the ground. And then we gave up 24 sacks as well. So we're going to have to be better in pass pro. And it'll be interesting to see with the new style offense, how that's going to look. But anyway, again, everything starts up front. If we can't get the O-line right, if these guys, either, don't mesh quickly, or if they're dinged up, or we're having to run kids in and out of there, which we kind of had to do at points in time last season. If we can find that cohesion in there, stay, relatively healthy, find 8 bodies, maybe those guys that I just mentioned, find 8 bodies that can get the job done out there, hey, who knows? Who knows how far this team could go. I'm interested to see it. A lot of newness here, not just with the O-line, but just what we happen to be talking about right this minute.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of new. And you mentioned 8 guys. They've got a ton to choose from. There's a lot of offensive linemen on this roster, and I didn't do the math on this in terms of like average size of a Coastal Carolina lineman over the past few years. These are some big boys.
Yes,
these are not the Mighty Mites of 2020. This is the opposite. You're looking at the heights and weights of some of these guys. You're looking at 6'4" to the tallest is 6'7", a Jackson State transfer named Mason Barton.
Yeah.
6'7", 335. That's a kind of, yeah, they should start calling him Tiny. That is a big boy. That is left tackle in the SEC type of size. So you got a brand new offensive line coach in Nick Gilbert. He was a part of the 2023 national champion Michigan Wolverines as like an assistant in the offensive line room there. So he knows what it takes to push some people around. So a lot of new, but you have to I think I've said this 5 or 6 times during the course of this podcast. You got to like what you have on paper. Big boys and a guy who has been around a program who knows how to use them. So the O-line is going to be the difference in this offense, obviously. You got a stable of running backs. How do those 2 rooms mesh is really the question.
Exactly. Yep.
But now we get to close out the show with a mailbag question from our very own Zach Capps, one of our 2 great social media operators that run the Teal Syndicate Twitter and Instagram pages. If you're not following us already, these guys, Alexander Hart and Zach Capps, they do a phenomenal job for us. He has a question of his own, and it was kind of late getting the post out there, so it was the only question we had this week. But it was an interesting one. It was if you could create your own football non-conference schedule, what 4 teams are you picking? We've got Oregon on the schedule for next year. You don't have to keep them on If you want to keep Oregon on, Joe, you're more than welcome to. But if you had 4 teams, Ryan Beard turns to you and says, make my non-con. What are you going with?
Okay, now if he's asking me to do this, then he's at some point probably going to have to agree to these teams that I'm going to pick, right? He's not going to.
No, he's putting the ball
he doesn't
in
have
your
to agree.
court.
He just said, just give me 4 teams. Well,
no, he controls the entirety of the program except for these 4 games. You choose.
Well, number one, I'm keeping Oregon on the schedule. I'm keeping that.
I figured
game.
you would.
I mean, that is a fabulous road trip for Coastal Carolina. Anybody that can go out there, I would do that in a second.
Yeah, it's on my bucket list as well. Going to see the Redwood Forest in Eugene.
I mean, 4 years ago we went out to UCLA and the Rose Bowl. I mean, that was a great road trip. Got to see some things that, went to a Dodgers game the night before. That was pretty cool. Hanging out there in Pasadena, kind of a once in a lifetime kind of shot. That was a really cool trip. And I would imagine this Oregon trip, has a lot of the same kind of feel to me about it, right? I mean, you get to go out there to the West Coast places, a place that we, obviously we've only played one game out there. And then we played the Hawaii Bowl, which is, another couple thousand miles out there in the Pacific. But anyway, I'd keep the Oregon game number one. I'd also keep Liberty. I mean, we haven't been to Lynchburg since 2015, and that rivalry is kind of like, it's going to be real interesting here in a few weeks when they come to town. I'm keeping that game on the schedule right now. I mean, I know it's on there right now, but I'm keeping that game. So I've got those 2, and I know it's probably not terribly original on my part, but if we got to bring somebody in, P4 coming to Conway, I'd love to see Bill Belichick in North Carolina come to town.
Okay.
I'd like to see.
I've got the opposite Carolina. I want the in-state.
You want the Gamecocks,
don't run from it anymore. Well, don't run from the Chanticleers.
Yeah, I know. I've had my fill of South Carolina and all their people, to be honest with you. No offense, but
I'll make an amendment. Either South Carolina or Clemson every year.
Either one. Let's play them here. There. I mean, we played Clemson in Death Valley once before. Yeah, on Halloween, as a matter of fact, that was kind of an interesting day.
I think that in-state rivalries are great for college football. We're starting to get away from the big-time rivalries because of the CFP and everything that goes into that. You see USC running from Notre Dame. That's not really an in-state, but that's a big-time rivalry. But USC or Clemson every year for Coastal Carolina.
Yeah. And so my 4th game would be another road game. And if we were doing this from a realistic standpoint, this game would be a home FCS game. Mm-hmm. But I don't care anything about that. I don't care about a home FCS game, right? Because that's what a coach is going to want, that home FCS game to, pick up a win, hopefully. Well, you just mentioned the team where I want to go play next, and that's Notre Dame. I want to go to Touchdown Jesus. I'd like to see Coastal Carolina go out there. We played them in lacrosse in the NCAA tournament a couple of years ago. I had to go out there. I'd like to go to South Bend, beat Notre Dame. There is a thing of anytime Notre Dame loses is a good day. Oh, no, TJ, don't do that to me. No, come on, man.
Don't say that. Hang on a minute.
Well, I know a guy that listens to this thing too, but I'm just really trying to get a reaction out of him, see if I'll get a text. I probably will. But anyway, I would love to go to Notre Dame just for that pageantry, just to see Touchdown Jesus, one of the historical places in all the history of college football. I would like to go play that game out there.
Yeah. Well, first of all, just to kind of for the audio people, that is a mini helmet signed by Joe Montana.
Oh, that's nice. Look at that.
So just for clarity, I come from a 3-generation Notre Dame family.
There you go.
I personally prefer warm weather, which is why I went to Coastal. But no, I would love to go out to Notre Dame. That would be a tremendous road trip. But now it's not on my list because, in all honesty, with the way the program right now is at Notre Dame, I want to preserve a 12-win season for Coastal Carolina. So here's my list. Okay. I'm with you. No FCS, right? But my two games, the one to replace FCS with, has to be from either the Athletic or Conference USA. I want it to be somewhere on the same sort of like that same step, the same kind of playing field as the Sun Belt. I want as many equal fielded games as possible. So bring me UTSA, bring me Liberty, bring me, teams like that. Liberty accomplishes both of those things. It's a rivalry game and it's a Conference USA game.
Yep.
For the other team, right, if you want to go to like the American, you could go, ECU wasn't a great draw the last time, right? 38-0 last season, not great. But that's a good team.
I would love another shot when we actually have a good idea about what we're doing, to be honest with you.
But teams like that, teams like that in the Athletic, like I feel like the non-conference, especially in the Power Four, is your chance to really compare yourselves to the rest of the country, right? You want to establish the Sun Belt as the premier conference, go play everybody else. Right? Go play the other G6 or as many of them as you can get on the schedule. So I like Conference USA and the American as like your two, or go play a MAC team, for example. Go get two of those. Get two G6 teams. I already mentioned South Carolina or Clemson every single year. And then I want that Power Four game. I want it to come from the Big 12. I want it. We've played Kansas. I don't think Kansas comes even close to Coastal in the past couple of years. I mean, it's been 3-0 Coastal Carolina's way since they made the transition to FBS. But like, give me a gritty, physical team like Kansas State. Someone who's going to really run the football, pound it in between the tackles, and really test your D-line, right? Because that's what it is, right? You'd love to win the game, right? We'd love to win against West Virginia. Right. And it could happen.
Sure.
But it really is a test. It's a test for your team. That's at the end of the day, you want to be competitive in those games and you want to see areas in which your team needs to grow before you hit the conference slate. So give me a team that's physical on the ground. Give me a team that has a complex enough passing package that you're going to be able to test those corners and those safeties and get out there and win a game, with the intention to go 12-0, with that being your marquee win on the schedule. I mean, you look at this schedule, you beat West Virginia, right? And West Virginia is supposedly supposed to have a great year in the Big 12 this year. But if you pull off that victory and then you run the rest of the table, that you're the CFP representative. If you lose to West Virginia, but you're competitive and then you run the table, you're the CFP representative. So give me a Big 12 team, give me no FCS, give me two G6 teams, and give me either South Carolina or Clemson. That's my schedule.
Okay. All right. That's fair enough.
So that will do it, I think, unless we have any final thoughts, Joe.
Just excited. TJ, excited. Next time we get together and convene this thing, we're going to be talking West Virginia, right? I mean, we're going to be looking at this thing. Season opener, 24th season of Coastal football. Looking forward to it. Excited about it.
And we'll be back on Monday. A couple things happened for me, so wasn't able to get one out on Monday. But we're on Wednesday this week, back to Monday for game week against West Virginia. We're going to try and get somebody on the West Virginia side to talk some Mountaineers as we get set for September 5th. 11 days or 10 days now, 10 days away from kickoff. But that's going to do it here on episode 6. TJ O'Sullivan, Joe Cashin. This is the Teal Syndicate Podcast. We will see you in not mock game week, but the first game week of the 2026 season. We'll see you then.